So there's a guy. I think he might be dead now, named Max Mosley. Let me look him up. He was a Formula One guy. He was like a race car driver who became an important Formula One owner or whatever. I don't know what they're called. Max Mosley. Let me look him up. Yeah, he died in 2021. So he died very recently. He was born in 1940. And he was the son of Diana Mitford and Oswald Mosley. And, of course, Oswald Mosley, if you follow my channel, you probably know who he is. Or he was the leader of the British Union of Fascists, as well as he did a bunch of other things with his political career, but that's the thing he's most famous for. So I found this such an interesting video because it is so awkward. It's a very, very awkward moment on the news. And it involves Max Mosley being questioned over his past when he was working with his dad in Union Movement, which was a political party created by Oswald Mosley in 1948 to basically unite Europe into one nation state. And there were some issues with Union Movement, as we shall see. It was kind of a controversial thing, but he was involved in it when he was young, when he was 22, I think, is the age he was during the events questioned in this little news clip. But he was also involved in a certain sex scandal, and that is also, I think, going to be brought up in this video. You see the cause of death there of Max Mosley? Let me look. How did he die? Max Mosley. Suicide by gunshot. What the hell? What the hell? This old man died of suicide by gunshot. I had no idea. Wow. Whoa. Okay, I have to read more about this. Okay, so he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and that's why he shot himself. What a way to go out. He's like, I have terminal cancer? Well, no use living this out. I'm just going to end it right here in a bloody way. That is pretty wild. I guess it makes sense for a race car driver to do something like that. Because, you know, they are kind of people who live on the edge a little bit. Wow, okay. So, before Max Mosley shot himself in the head, he did this interview. Let's watch a little bit of it.
Said in the News of the World trial in 2008 that the claim that leaflets were put out alleging immigrants brought disease to the UK was absolute nonsense. Did you get it wrong, or did you lie under oath?
Dream of lying under oath. That's a very offensive suggestion which you shouldn't make. Absolutely shouldn't make. The truth is that I was asked about that leaflet, and I said to their barrister, if that leaflet existed, if you had it, you produce it. And of course, they should have produced it if it existed.
Well, you
I've
actually
never
said you didn't
No,
recall
listen to
it.
the answer. I've never seen that leaflet, the original, and I'd like to see it. That's a photocopy. I'd like
This
to
is a
see the original.
photocopy of the original, which you saw in Michael
That's the
Crick's
first
report. I'm
time I've
happy
seen a
for you to
photocopy.
have a look at that, just to look through it. But I mean, I'm also happy to quote from it. Walter Hesketh's by-election leaflet says, "Coloured immigration threatens your children's health."
We've already
all
had
those
that.
terrible suggestions. Well,
Well,
why
they
did you,
asked me in the trial.
publish
No,
it?
they
Your
asked
name
me
is
in
on
the
bottom
trial
of it.
whether that leaflet existed, and I said, which was absolutely true, that it was complete nonsense, and that was my recollection. It still is my recollection. I'm not even sure it's genuine, but if it is genuine, it doesn't reflect my views today, and this is entirely a red herring put out by the Daily Mail, and I'm astonished.
So you think this might be a
I'm
hoax, this
astonished.
leaflet here, that
It's
I'm trying to
possible.
get you to
I've
have a
never
look at?
seen the original.
Right.
We would have to, my lawyers have actually asked the Mail for the original, and it would be interesting to give it some forensic tests.
Well, the original is in 2 public libraries, and your name is on the bottom of it. You are legally responsible for it. Do you accept
This is what
that?
you say. We'd like to look at it. But in the meantime, assuming it is true, that does not reflect my view, absolutely. And this was 56 years ago, and it's an attempt by the Daily Mail to distract from what the real issue is, which is whether they are breaching the Data Protection Act.
Did you, at the time in 1961, believe in sending immigrants home to Jamaica? Did you believe that?
No, as your quote already said, I believe that financial inducement should be offered to persuade them to go home. That is now completely academic because we're 50.
Yeah, this is an interesting whole thing because this gets to the union movement politics and its relationship with racism. The thing is that union movement, as well as the BUF, specifically Mosley himself, who was, his whole ideology basically was the professed ideology of the BUF. Yeah, it's pretty tense. But union movement had a stance on basically, there was all these immigrants coming over to London from Jamaica. And so there were black people moving into the East End of London. And this, of course, was a problem because it was creating racial tensions in London. And so Oswald Mosley's answer to this problem was to send them home. So the British at that time didn't have any restrictions on immigration from the Commonwealth. So if you were from a Commonwealth country or an empire country, you could come in and live in London if you wanted to. So all these Jamaicans lost their jobs because the government made a boneheaded decision to start buying sugar from Cuba instead of Jamaica. And so they had no work in Jamaica, and they had to move to London for opportunities. And so Mosley, his answer was very simple. Let's send these people back home to Jamaica by giving them their jobs back by buying sugar from Jamaica again. He was just like, this was a dumb idea to switch to Cuba. Let's go back to Jamaica, give them their jobs back, and then send them all home. And he even said that he talked to Jamaican immigrants and they told him that they would love to go home. It's just that there's no jobs at home. And so he was like, wouldn't this be better for everybody? Like, the people who are having problems with all of these black immigrants coming into London won't have to deal with that anymore. And the black immigrants won't have to deal with being around a bunch of people who hate them for coming over to their country and stealing their jobs. And they can go back home where it's sunny and nice. It was a very rational solution to the problem, even though it's kind of, you can look at it, if you want to look at it very uncharitably, you can see it as a racist solution to the problem. But I think it gets more to the sort of fascist idea of having an organic government and an organic society that doesn't try to change the values of society into being something other than what they are, but more just tries to make the most of what society is capable of in its current state. And so it's, from that perspective, I think it's a very rational idea to say, why don't we just send these people home? They didn't even really want to come here in the first place. They just came here because they were desperate enough. Like, if they wanted to be in London, they would have gone to London already. They wouldn't have waited for their jobs to get taken away in Jamaica. And so that was kind of the issue that was going on during the 1950s. And so the issue of black immigration to the United Kingdom continued to be a hot button issue into the early 60s. And Mosley and Union Movement had this answer to the issue. And that's what Max Mosley was talking about here. That's what he's saying.
That does not reflect my view, absolutely. And this was 56 years ago. And it's an attempt by the Daily Mail to distract from what the real issue is, which is whether they are breaching the Data Protection Act.
Did you, at the time in 1961, believe in sending immigrants home to Jamaica?
61.
Did you believe that?
No, as your quote already said, I believe that financial inducement should be offered to persuade them to go home. That is...
Financial inducement should be offered to persuade them to go home. So basically give them their jobs back. And so what Mosley here is talking about in regards to the Daily Mail is that the Daily Mail started reporting on this sex scandal that he was involved in. And he then sued them for being in breach of the Data Protection Act. And so what the Daily Mail did was they drudged up this old leaflet that he signed off on when he was 21, a Union Movement leaflet that said a bunch of racist stuff about black people spreading disease. And he is denying the existence of that leaflet, the authenticity of that leaflet. And he said that he told the barrister to produce the leaflet if it in fact existed. But this reporter is showing him a photocopy of the leaflet that she is saying does exist in authentic form in 2 libraries in England. And so he's caught in this position where he's denying the existence of a leaflet that she is presenting to him right here. Like, here it is. Here's a photocopy of the leaflet. And he's like, no, I don't think it exists. And it only gets more awkward from here. You can see we still have like 7 minutes of this left. And like, already the stage has been set. What can possibly happen for the next 7 minutes of this interview? Let's find out.
It's now completely academic because we're 50-odd years on, and it's no longer a possible question. And I think I should remind you of this, that this was in 1961. I ceased to have any involvement in my father's movement in 1963. I went into other areas. In 1982, you had the Conservative Party, Monday Club, had a committee for repatriation of immigrants. The secretary of that committee was Mr. Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons. He has also changed his view. You are entitled, as you get older, to change your view, and it's outrageous.
Okay, but did you? I'm asking you about your...
Carl says, apparently those pics/videos of him in a BDSM orgy is still floating around the internet. Is that what it was? I wasn't familiar with what the precise details of the sex scandal were, but that is pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
View at the time, did you believe that immigrants brought disease to the UK in 1961? Is that a belief you held?
I have no reason to believe that at all, then or now. I think...
And
were they, though? Were the immigrants bringing disease to the UK? Because if they were, then that's a matter of public health that should be considered and not just dismissed as racism. I don't know if they were or not. That's the thing. It could just be a lie that was told by former black shirts, because there were a lot of racist black shirts back in the 30s, and those guys were the people who signed up for Union Movement when Mosley came out with it in 48. He had a thing for whips. That's pretty cool.
Those statements are racist.
I don't know about...
Like, this conversation, the problem I have with this conversation is that I'm not sure, like, there's no established evidence one way or the other whether these claims about immigrants bringing disease were true or not. It's like that idea of the fact that it could be a valid claim is just kind of ignored. And I'm just kind of thinking, like, yeah, but was it true? Was it true or wasn't it? I don't know. It's just like, oh yeah, this was racist, wasn't it? And but I don't know. I mean, obviously it was racist, regardless of whether it was true or not. But the question of whether it's true does impact, I think, the degree that we should sort of punish the memory of this leaflet. Because if it is a lie, and it's a racist lie, that is a lot worse than if it's true and it is racist pandering that relies on a truthful claim. You know what I'm saying?
Racist, they're deeply offensive. And
You don't think it's racist to say that immigrants bring disease to the UK?
they might be a completely same, they might be an immigrant from somewhere like Canada or exactly the same. It's nothing to do with race. It's
No, this
to do
was
with
Yeah, well, in this specific case with this leaflet, it was about black people. And I think it was about Caribbean black people. But since this is a little bit later, this is 61, I'm not sure if this was specifically the Jamaican question, because I think that was more around 56, 57. I'm not really sure about that. Yeah, he's kind of obfuscating it a little bit, like, oh, they could be from Canada. Well, in this specific case, they weren't. But I know what his point is. His point was that this could just as easily be about, like, if there was a country full of white people and all the white people were immigrating in vast numbers into London, and they were bringing disease, that union movement would have printed a similar leaflet. I think that's what he's trying to say, which I'm not entirely sure if that's true, because I do think that probably the authors of this leaflet had some sort of racist agenda behind it, but it's not always clear. The Windrush immigrants? What's that? Windrush.
Particularly about coloured people. Coloured immigration threatens your children's health is a claim in the leaflet that I put before you.
It doesn't say coloured immigrants bring leprosy.
This is the direct quote from the leaflet. Coloured immigration threatens your children's health.
So he has never actually read the leaflet, which he claims doesn't exist. And then she says colored immigrant. It's about colored immigration. And then he says, no, it doesn't say that. And then she says, no, actually, this is a direct quote. It does say that. So already we're starting to see Max Mosley's whole story here getting rattled. Like, he's very clearly getting flustered because he's being overly defensive here. He is denying the existence of this leaflet that she's showing him. Here it exists and it has your name on it. He's like, no, it doesn't exist. First bad move. And then he denies something that's written on the leaflet, even though he's never actually read the leaflet. So, yeah, that's pretty stupid.
Absolutely, but that's not.
You're saying that's not racist?
I think probably, yeah, I think that probably is racist. I will concede.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, that probably is racist.
Yeah, completely. But
So would you issue an apology to the West Indians in Manchester, who must have been absolutely terrified by
I've
this?
no reason to apologise to anyone.
Please take your call afterwards, but I mean, you're not apologising to anyone for
He gets a call in the middle of it.
racist statements? Statements you admit are racist.
This was a statement in a leaflet, which I'm not even sure is genuine, which would never reflect my view. It wouldn't reflect my view then or now, because I simply wouldn't dream of insulting people. If you
A lot of people might be really shocked that you can't apologise for a leaflet that has your name on the bottom, which makes statements that you admit now are racist.
See, the problem here is he's like, this didn't reflect my view then, nor does it now. But it has his name on it. He signed off on it back then. So all he needs to do is say, I apologize for signing off on this. That was bad judgment on my part. I shouldn't have done that. And if I had paid more attention to what was on this leaflet and thought more about it, I probably wouldn't have signed off on it back then. That's all he has to do. That's all he has to say. He can even say that I don't remember signing off on it. That would be valid too, because who could question his memory? Only he could know that. But instead he's doubling down and tripling down on denial. And it's not very intelligent. HMS Windrush was a ship that brought West Indies Jamaican immigrants to the UK post-World War II, the Windrush generation. Okay. HMT? HMT? Shouldn't it be HMS? What does HMT stand for? I thought you had it right the first time, HMS. Always double down, classic. Yep. Yeah, it would have been for the best if he just acknowledged it and apologized. Yeah, because it doesn't have to be a reflection on his views now. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a big reflection on his views then. I think he's caught in this trap of thinking that if I apologize for this, that means I'm admitting that I was racist in the past. And I don't even think that's necessarily the case, because if you're somebody who's working in the propaganda arm of a political party, and you're a kid who's like 21, it's totally reasonable to assume that you've got leaflets coming in left and right. You've got articles coming in left and right. Maybe you don't read all of them before signing off on them. Maybe it becomes kind of routine for you to just go, yeah, sounds good. And you don't necessarily pore over every detail of every leaflet you sign. I mean, there are ways he could have justified this without denying it. There are ways he could have saved face without just outright saying, no, it didn't happen. And so it's really embarrassing to watch him just like go through this whole rigmarole of trying to do like a double denial on this. That the leaflet doesn't exist, and even if it does exist, and I signed off on it, somehow that doesn't somehow I'm still innocent. Her Majesty's troop ship. Okay.
If that leaflet is shown to be genuine, then I would certainly say it should not have been given. Absolutely.
Will you apologise to West Indians living in Manchester?
None of it's such nonsense that, will you apologise? The question is...
Why is that nonsense? People must have been terrified to see this leaflet circulating.
No.
By the candidate that you backed, a candidate that you called quite a respectable man.
He was...
Drinking the water. That is a classic, I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to take a sip of water. But he did it at the most, like, inopportune moment where he had to answer the question as he had a mouthful of water. Oh, he's so uncomfortable.
Policeman, former international athlete, very decent person as far as I was concerned, and I thought he was then, and I think he is now.
You still think he's a decent person to put out a leaflet like this?
The thing is, you're accusing me of putting... I'm the person who put their name on the bottom of the leaflet. So
you published the leaflet, you're legally responsible for it.
Absolutely. If that leaflet's genuine, I'm responsible for it, and it shouldn't have been issued. And the point I make is this, that I think it's perfectly legitimate to say we don't want immigrants to come in, and people are doing that now about the EU. What is not legitimate is when they get here to insult them or to say something offensive or difficult. And that, if that's correct, should not have been said.
But as recently as 2 years ago, you said that Walter Hesketh was an entirely reasonable person. You stand by those claims even now, and yet he was circulating these views in this by-election campaign.
The thing is that I think he was an entirely reasonable person. Those views should not, certainly in modern context, have been circulated. So you've got to see this in the context of the time. This is 50-odd years ago. People talk completely differently. This was before there was any act of Parliament to restrict immigration. You had the Commonwealth Immigration Act in 1962, where people referred to coloureds and so on. That was the talk of the time. It's changed a little bit since then.
So you accept that the views in this leaflet are racist. When did you stop endorsing racist views?
Stop 1963.
So you admit that you were a racist in the past?
No, I don't. You said endorsing racist views. If that's racist, I cannot say I didn't endorse it because I signed it. But I've...
He has a good point here, because endorsing racist views is not the same as being racist. And her language kind of is a little bit Weasley here, because she's like, when did you stop endorsing racist views? He says 1963, because that's when he left Union Movement. But and he endorsed this leaflet by signing off on it. But that doesn't mean that he necessarily agreed with the leaflet. He endorsed it officially, but that doesn't mean that he wrote the leaflet or had anything to do with coming up with these ideas. It could have just been a thing that he pushed through just because that's the arm of the party he worked for and he wasn't paying attention that day. He has plausible deniability in this issue. He's trying the Gish Gallop strategy. I guess he kind of was doing a bit of a Gish Gallop there. I don't know. I think he was more just providing context. Because Gish Gallop, that's just when you provide a bunch of irrelevant information to distract from the point, isn't it? I don't know.
I've never been a racist. I'm not a racist, never will be a racist.
But you published a racist leaflet.
In your view, yes. I mean, I think, you know, it's very disagreeable, but racism is where you're sort of attacking people because of their origins. That was an offensive statement about people bringing disease. Not quite the same thing.
You keep on changing your tune. You admitted it was a racist statement, and now you're trying to backtrack and say it's merely offensive.
Well, I think you could argue that it's racist, but that's not really what this is all about. And I mean, producing this now, 56 years later, and trying to distract from the Daily Mail and their activities. If you want to do an investigation, investigate the phone hacking, computer hacking, abuse of people like the Dowlers, the McCanns, and the...
Well,
why not do
this
that?
is a Daily Mail story, but we've checked it out independently. But is this leaflet one of the reasons that you're battling newspapers over their use of the Data Protection Act to erase your past, because you haven't fully owned up to your past?
Obviously not, because I didn't even know the leaflet existed when I had the News of the World case. And at the time...
Well, so you say.
Well, are you calling me a liar?
Well, I'm asking you
calling me a liar?
I'm asking you if you lied in court.
Obviously not.
Do you believe... Did you
a
perjure yourself?
That is a most offensive question, which you shouldn't ask.
I mean, it's totally legitimate to ask if you lied in court. That's just a journalistic inquiry. Or inquiry. Is it inquiry? Is that a legitimate pronunciation? Because that's always how my brain wants to say it. Because inquiry. But inquiry is how I usually hear it. I don't know if that's just the British way of saying it, inquiry. I don't know. But the thing about it is, like, obviously, like, if he denies committing perjury, there's no way to really bust him for perjury. Because he can just say, I don't remember making that. I don't remember signing that leaflet. I don't remember the existence of that leaflet. That's just very easy to get away with. And so, like, there's never going to be any reason for him to admit to this if he did indeed remember. And I don't think he did remember, because why would he remember that? That was so long ago. It must have not taken any more than a couple minutes of his time. And there were probably a bunch of other bits of propaganda that he was looking at that day. So, yeah, I highly doubt that he would remember something like this. And it makes sense to me why he wouldn't. So, Perjury, I think it's very unlikely.
Pass.
This is an offensive leaflet.
You
Did you
are-
perjure yourself
No, this
in
is
the
an
High
offensive
Court?
question. I said that I didn't. I denied that leaflet. I challenged the leading counsel to produce it. If,
You were very
no,
sure
no,
that the
just
leaflet
listen,
didn't
just
exist.
Listen to
You-
this.
you
If
told the trial,
leading
if there
counsel,
was such a
if you
leaflet, you'd be able to
challenge,
produce
if you
it.
challenge leading counsel in the High Court to produce something, and you're wrong, it's a disaster. If I hadn't been absolutely certain that that leaflet didn't exist, I wouldn't have challenged him to produce it.
Now the leaflet has been produced, though. Are you worried that you might have perjured yourself in
No,
court?
because, oh dear, perjury is saying something you should think is untrue. You know is untrue.
Yeah.
I said something which I knew in my own mind was true. It's no question of perjury. It's because it's a really stupid and offensive question to ask that. And to suggest that I perjured myself is really stupid and offensive.
Well, let me ask you one more question.
go on.
Are you a fit and proper person to be funding the office of the Deputy Labour leader, Tom Watson?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Will you give him
why
more
should
money?
Why should I not support Tom Watson, who's probably one of the most honest and courageous politicians we've got?
He might be rather
So-
troubled that you've published a racist leaflet.
Interesting that he was supporting a Labour candidate here, if I indeed heard that correctly.
That's it.
Well, let me ask you one more question.
go on.
Are you a fit and proper person to be funding the office of the Deputy Labour leader, Tom Watson?
Yeah. Interesting that he's more of a. If this is true, then he would be more of a left-wing kind of guy, which would imply that he maybe took the things that his father said about policy quite seriously at the time, and maybe resonated more with that stuff than what could be the sort of social issues pandering of the kind of far right of Great Britain. I would like to know a little bit more about Max Mosley's politics.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Will you give him more money?
Why should I not support Tom Watson, who's probably one of the most honest and courageous politicians we've got?
He might be rather troubled that you've published a racist leaflet.
I think you've already had his answer.
Will you give him more money?
Yes, absolutely.